Merrick Garland sics federal agents on moms who protest critical race theory while profiting from companies that gather sensitive data on American public school children. Too bad this fascist and profiteer was blocked from a nomination to the Supreme Court. Am I right? I'm Dr. Duke, she's Katie, and this is the Dr. Duke Show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dr. Duke Show, the only program that keeps you educated on the craziness impacting K-12 classrooms and college campuses around the world. Today's show is sponsored by Mike Lindell and our friends at MyPillow. MyPillow is always offering great deals, and this week they're offering their iconic pillow, the one that launched the empire, for just $30. $30 for a great MyPillow. All you have to do is use the access code Dr. Duke, D-R-D-U-K-E, and it can be yours. You also get 66% on almost everything else at the store. And all you got to do, D-R-D-U-K-E. Rock on. All right, if you're watching us on social media, please hit that share button and let's dive in. Today we start with Joe Biden's Attorney General and former Democrat pick for the Supreme Court, Merrick Garland, as new information now links the AG to a firm that stores psychological profiles of students while avoiding parental consent for that data. This, as Garland has been asked to apply federal pressure on moms and dads confronting school boards for their failures across the country. It's a lot of word salad, but the bottom line is that we were told that Merrick Garland was a moderate. Remember when Obama tried to squeeze him in at the end? When Ruth Bader Ginsburg, mummy that she was unwilling to step away, unwilling to step down, even though she was like 112 and Methuselah considered her a relative. And so they didn't get that extra Supreme Court seat. The Democrats, they tried to squeeze it in at the end of the Obama's term. Didn't work. We were told that Merrick Garland was this wonderful moderate guy. He's the kind of Democrat that Republicans would like. And now we know just what kind of a guy he is. He is actually profiteering on your kids. He is he makes money from a company that is avoiding moms and dads' right to opt out, and is trying to delude them into buying into this social emotional learning garbage, which is a huge database of highly sensitive information being kept by the government and companies about your children. So he's making money off your kids, even as he's about to slam the door on moms and dads speaking up to school boards about this unbelievably politicized and dangerous curriculum.
What we're talking about is a company called Panorama Education. And mom and dad at home right now, you should be calling your school and ask, hey, do you have anything to do with Panorama Education? Because it's a company that issues surveys to students, and they ask, hey, are you gender fluid? Or, how confident are you that other students at your school can have honest conversations with one another about race? So it's getting into all that CRT loveliness, and at the nation's 100 largest school districts, more than a fifth of them for sure are using this. So extrapolate that out to all of the districts across the nation, and maybe your small district may be using this as well. But what's happening is the co-founder is actually, Merrick Garland's son-in-law.
Oh, nepotism from the Democrats.
How did that happen? I don't understand.
It's a good thing Joe Biden's kids aren't. Oh, wait, never mind.
So if Merrick Garland's son-in-law is using that company, the Panorama Education, they're using this students' surveys, and they're talking about CRT, and it was Merrick Garland who just issued that whole letter about, mom and dad, you're basically essentially a terrorist if you question this CRT or dare to speak to the school board about it. It just really doesn't look good, proper, right? Ethical?
Prediction.
Ooh.
Nothing's going to happen, and 2 months from now, Merrick Garland's son-in-law is going to make artistic collages out of all of those data points and sell them for $500,000 a pop, just like Joe Biden said. That's my prediction.
What's the over-under on that one? You let us know in the comments. Now, we do know that according to at least one district, and it only takes one because if it's one, then there's more, at least one district's contract with the company says that they say that all of the personal student data is sent to the company, which, by the way, is funded by that guy named Mark Zuckerberg.
Zuckerberg.
Zuckerberg? Do you know what he's in charge of? He's in charge of something. I'm not sure. I think it's this startup company they call Facebook.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, that they compile all sorts of data on their users as well. Isn't that true? I think
I don't know. Maybe you let us know. Is that true? Have you heard this? On top of this, there's a loophole, because there's always a loophole. We're talking politics and
Too
government
bad it's
stuff.
not a noose.
Anyway, it's a loophole, and it circumvents a requirement for parental consent by counting the for-profit company there as being a school official. So basically, we have a third party, and outside the Panorama, they come in to give all these surveys, and because the school then makes them a school official, they can have access to the data, and no one has to tell mommy or daddy that your kid's data is being taken. Oh,
So this is your
wow,
public
what a
schools.
loopy hole.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable, isn't it? That you've got high-level government being co-opted by corrupt teachers' unions and venal educrats in charge of these schools who are allowing these companies, these for-profit companies, come on in to take all this data, including have your kids been vaccinated or not type data, and put it in a big file, and you're not, because they're school officials now. Panorama is now a school official. And I wonder in how many schools in this country is Planned Parenthood considered a official partner of the school, and LGBTQ activist groups. This is a really neat trick to get around telling moms and dads what's happening. And while the schools aren't going to tell you what's happening, thanks to Merrick Garland, you won't be able to tell the school boards what's happening in your mind.
Yes, because you're considered a terrorist, essentially. Well, also understand that Panorama, they focus, obviously, on the social emotional learning. And in just recent years, they've gotten from at least 22 of the nations, again, 100 largest, so there's probably more. Just in that, they've gotten $12 million. $12 million. And there's more. There's another school that's going to pay millions more. And you know, all 22 of the nation's largest, so you know the best schools are on that list.
Yeah, here we go. Take a look. New York City, Dallas, Prince George's County in Maryland, San Bernardino, California, Hawaii, Seattle. Just down the list of everything you would expect it to be. It's pretty remarkable. And you think about what they're doing here. I mean, we are actually, these public schools now that are gone full-on Marxist, condemning capitalism, condemning wealth, condemning first world nations, are now grubbing money off your kids' personal data by pretending that outside for-profit companies are actually school officials so they can get all of this information without consulting mom and dad. And so when you see this, what do you do, Mom? I mean, can you think of a single reason, Mom, why, just one, why you should keep your kids in these schools?
Well, before we move on, just a reminder that if you enjoy our content, please consider joining the Patriot Club. Your tax-deductible donation keeps this show right on going down the train tracks. Simply visit patriotclub.us to get signed up. That's patriotclub.us. And as a special thank you, again, we will always ship you our brand new American Patriot tumbler, and it is going to be etched with the muscular likeness of that man we call George Washington. Yes, the George Washington. But today, right now, it's not about George Washington. It's about Randi. It's always about Randi. And it's Randi Weingarten for any of you who haven't been tuning into our show. But when you do, you know it's about Randi. So Randi Weingarten is the president of the American Federation of Teachers, and she likes to say things that, they're supposed to make her sound like that she cares about education or about students or about, anything, but it's never the truth. And it continued last week when Weingarten decided to reference in an article that was in the leftist newspaper magazine thing called the New Republic. And that whole article was all about attacking Governor Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, who actually kept a state open. Well, it's about his policies. And she tweeted that this isn't just about masks or about Governor DeSantis' political aspirations. It's about the complete destabilization of public education so that parents will choose private schools.
Well, the reality is that the public schools have destabilized public schools. The public schools decided, without a single vote from you, the taxpayers, that they were going to stop teaching math and science and English at anything like a high level, and they were going to turn your classrooms into incubators for growing young Antifa thugs, Black Lives Matter idiots, and other aggressive, progressive types. That's what they decided. They destabilized their own classrooms. Now they're blaming Ron DeSantis and Republicans across the country simply because they want kids to go to private schools.
Yeah, so basically Randi Weingarten's trying to put panic out there. Oh no, Ron DeSantis, take him to be like, oh, all the kids are going to go to private schools now. Here's what the New Republic had written for their article. They said Florida's recent struggles over masks in schools augur a terrifying shift in the right's approach to education policy. And then they quickly gave a reason for the left's panic. This May, in a speech at Michigan's deeply conservative Hillsdale College, Florida Education Commissioner Rich Corcoran sketched out a few principles for Republicans to follow. Conservatives, he said, should no longer consider the primary purpose of school to be training students for employment. Instead, they should see it as instilling moral values. And then the article said that DeSantis appears to be piloting a new education ideology for Republicans, trading the decades-old, substantially bipartisan education reform agenda. I knew that one would get you. A formula that was born in Florida. He is mustering a naked attack on the very existence of public schools. Dr. Duke, your rebuttal to that comment specifically.
Nuts, as the American general replied.
And no bolts.
When he was surrounded by Nazis and overwhelmed, and the Nazi command said, surrender. Nuts, you're crazy, no. Every aspect of what they just said is completely and utterly wrong. If you actually, you're a smart audience, you're listening to us, you're not reading the New Republic, so you know that the public schools have been anything but biased in their approach politically. You also know that the only safe place for your kids is out of these public schools. It is amazing that people like Randi Weingarten, who make really big bank. She gets paid a lot of money to be the leader of the country's second largest teachers union, and all she's known for is basically shilling and lying. She is a manipulator of truth, a la Baghdad Bob. She's right up there with him and other Democrats who don't seem to see a problem at the southern border. She is the problem, and we know. And one of the most tragic aspects of the deconstruction of American public education that is coming from the left, not the right, is that unions play such a big role in all of this. These unions have made it clear now for decades that they don't really care about what kind of an education your kids get, as long as they're being indoctrinated to be future progressives who sign up for things like the American Federation of Teachers.
So the New Republic, this is the part of the article where they really got scurred. They got scurred when they wrote that in March, DeSantis, unveiled a $106 million civics education initiative developed coincidentally under the advisement of Hillsdale College, which directs a line of charter schools.
You mean the deeply conservative
including
Hillsdale College?
One that was run by the education commissioner's wife that emphasizes the influence of the Ten Commandments, calls protesting irresponsible citizenship, and bans Marxist critical race theory.
Marx in public schools?
In June,
Monsters.
The State Board of Education prohibited any instruction that defines American history as something other than the creation of a new nation based largely on universal principles stated in the Declaration of Independence. I'm so scared now. I'm so scared.
And Marx wasn't even born yet. You can't ban Marx from the school. He wasn't even born when the country was born. I mean, founding of the country had nothing to do, with, of course, universal principles, the Declaration, but everything to do with Marx and Marxism, who wouldn't be born conveniently until significantly later. There you go.
But obviously, this whole segment is all about Randi, because it always has to be about Randi. So we must end with Randi. Yes, I did just work that in that many times. Now, Randi says back in July, we have to remember, she had tweeted about Ron DeSantis that millions of Floridians are going to die for Ron DeSantis' ignorance, and he's choosing to profit from it. I'm pretty sure we didn't get that, but she tweeted this because DeSantis had his campaign team had offered a T-shirt that said "Don't Fauci my Florida," which I think is quite clever, actually. And then, Weingarten, she kind of had to apologize, but it was more like a half apology because she tweeted, "You were all probably right. I shouldn't have said millions." But actually, in the original tweet of that whole thing, she had stated, "Disgusting. Millions of Floridians are going to die for Ron DeSantis' ignorance, and he's choosing to profit from it. He doesn't care about Floridians. He cares about furthering his own cruel agenda." And that, my friends, circles on back to our friend Randi Weingarten and all that she stands for. Every once in a blue moon, I like to have a little fun. Maybe you do too, Mom and Dad. Dr. Duke, he has no fun ever. But today we're going to have a little fun because the Babylon Bee is a lot of fun. If you don't know Babylon Bee, it's a satire website, and they put out, articles that are satire, and most people on the left don't know it's satire, so they always are getting Snopes and fact-checked for their satire articles. But I think they really, again, hit the nail on the head, and that's probably why people don't know the truth from what's false, because they are so in the know of what's really happening. And today we have an example from them that they put out a little Babylon Bee guide, and it states how to tell a prison from a public school. And if you can't laugh and cry with this graphic, then you're not paying attention. So, number one, first way to tell a prison from a public school. Well, in prison, the goal is to leave reformed, but in a public school, the goal is to leave conformed.
Yep, and then we've got another one that says scripture tattoos are acceptable. In public school, scripture t-shirts are banned.
Have you not heard that at your own public school? If you haven't, then you're, again, not paying attention, because all of this has been happening in our public school systems. Let's go to another one. Why not? Let's take a look. At prison, the punch, they punch the biggest guy to, assert dominance. Because in prison, like Prison Mike, it's all about asserting dominance and surviving.
You got a good life.
You
got a good life.
All right, well, so you punch the biggest guy. Well, in public school, though, you want to be the most oppressed to assert your dominance. So that's why you have to basically be woe is me all of your whole life, because then that gives you the public school cred, because you're not on the street, so it's not street cred, but you get the public school cred, and then you get to be the most oppressed. Wham.
I like this one. In prison, you run into R. Kelly. In public schools, run into R. Kelly's ex. Although we have a line of demarcation here, because R. Kelly apparently likes to pee on little girls, while public school teachers like to pee all over the curriculum.
They could have hired you.
I could be a Babylonian bee right now. Bring me on board.
A bee. All right, well, let's continue. In prison, when there's a pandemic, you get released. Did you read some of those stories early on? Basically, people who are in prison, the prisoners, were trying to give each other COVID so that they could then all get out. But in public school, if there's a pandemic, you get solitary confinement. And we've talked about this on a couple different occasions, on obviously overall how your public school is treating your children as if they are some sort of diseased being and don't deserve to be around any other human being. So they get put in solitary confinement.
Another one, prison, they learn useful jobs and skills, while in the public schools, they learn intersexual gender theory. There you go.
And in prison, they're taking a look at the Rita Hayworth poster, while at public school, it's all about the Lenin poster. And I actually don't think it's Lenin. I think it is straight Marx or Che. They don't know Lenin as much as they know. There's certain ones that the public school people really like to pick.
I'm amused that they had to go back to Rita Hayworth.
I don't understand that one so much as you would, because I don't watch certain
It is a
movies.
Shawshank Redemption image, isn't it? So
I don't watch certain movies. So
you didn't watch Shawshank?
No, I've never seen that one. I like my rom-coms. I like to say positive. Shawshank Redemption.
Morgan Freeman.
I know.
I think it was his best performance, nevertheless.
Well, then maybe I should watch it. Okay, let's continue here. In prison, if you snitch on cellmates, for hiding crack. That's what you do in prison. You snitch. In public school, you snitch on your parents for not recycling. That one's kind of taking it back. snitches. They're all about getting those stitches, right? Am I right?
And then we've got prison. You got the drag queen cellmate. And in public schools, you've got the drag queen story hour. Although another common thing in both prison and public schools, you have sodomy. It's all over the place.
Yes,
only in prison, you can't talk about it to 5-year-olds like you can in public school.
And speaking of things you can't talk about, we will end on how in prison, jabbing is forbidden, but in public school, jabbing is required.
You need a shiv instead of a needle, but rock on. Well, it is time again for that segment that you know you love. It's Real Education. It is Instant Classics. Today, and all this week, we're going to be looking at pictures, paintings that I like to call paintings of revolution. Look, the Democrats are pushing this entire country over a cliff. They're doubling down on all of their stupid, constitution-eroding, freedom-killing, economy-destroying nonsense. So sooner or later, in the back of our minds, in the back of everybody's minds, a lot of talk about this already. We're going to break into two countries. Is there going to be some kind of a just revolution to turn this country back to what its principles are? So we're going to look at some historical paintings about revolution, starting with Lady Liberty Leading the People by Eugene Delacroix. Take a look at this painting there. Beautiful painting. Lady Liberty Leading the People is a painting by Delacroix commemorating the July Revolution of 1830, which toppled King Charles X of France. A woman of the people with a Phrygian cap personifying the concept of liberty leads a varied group of people forward over a barricade and over the bodies of the fallen comrades, holding the flag of the French Revolution. This is not a painting, however, advocating for the Jacobite murderous regime, progressive regime of the French Revolution. This is talking about a new French Revolution, a different one. There's that flag, the tricolore, which again became France's national flag after this series of events. In one hand, Lady Liberty holds a bayonet and a musket in the other. She is primed for war. The figure of liberty is also viewed as a symbol of France herself, and the French Republic is known as Marianne, and she is their Marianne. She is the leader of their cause. The painting is often confused, as I mentioned a moment ago, for the French Revolution. By the time Delacroix painted this painting, he was already the acknowledged leader of the Romantic school in French painting. He was born in the age of the Enlightenment, Delacroix, but grew up in the Romantic age. He rejected the emphasis on precise drawing and characterized the academic art of his time, and instead he gave new prominence to a free brush color, right? Wide open strokes, a very free kind of painting, very much like the the movement towards freedom that he was advocating here. And this is a very dear painting to French loyalists everywhere. It shows an incredibly broad background of people of all different classes. Many of them have already paid the ultimate price for the freedom and liberty of their country, and the fact that Lady Liberty, Marianne, is almost open-breasted there, her breasts are out, is perhaps a commentary on the Amazons and the fighting spirit of that all-female tribe. It is also a suggestion that she is literally, not just figuratively, the mother of her family, the mother of her nation, and she sustains them.
Okay, before we go, let's show some love to our Patriot Club members. And today, we're going to give a good old shout out to Paul from Edmond, Oklahoma. Paul, thank you for supporting us all the way from Oklahoma.
Thank you. For Freedom Project, I'm Dr. Duke. She's Katie. Until next time, Boomer Sooner, my friends.